Okay.
Okay, it is now 7:01 PM on Monday, May 11th, 2026. I call this committee of the whole meeting to order. Ms. Sully, will you please call the roll?
Jennifer Clifton. Here. Chris Hamilton.
Here.
Erica Peterson.
Here.
Jillian Phelps. Here. John Ruggles.
Here.
And Fred Steptoe.
Here. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Number 4 on the agenda, public comments. Ms. Sully, do we have any?
We do not.
Okay. Would anybody like to add any information or discussion items?
Yeah, if we could add a discussion or update on Camp Timberlake. We get it from the superintendent.
All right. Sounds good. Any opposed to adding that item? All right, we will pop that in at the end of number 6. Any other? All right. On to number 6, Milburn Middle School ELA curriculum presentation and recommendation. Ms. Gedville and middle school teachers.
I'm gonna start with 2 things. One, I realized how I have to listen to me present. Instead, because I don't sound so great today. But we are presenting today our proposal to adopt a new middle school ELA curriculum. We're gonna take over.
Yeah, hi, I'm Catherine McNeil. I teach 8th grade ELA at the middle school, so I've been in the piloting process. And this is Courtney, I think you've probably seen her here before, our instructional coach. Is it on? Okay, so just a little bit about it. This was our ELA committee that's been working through some pilots, through some belief finding and what we feel is important and priorities and things like that at the middle school. We're comprised of all ELA teachers and the special ed co-teachers, and then our lovely instructional coach, Ann Carey.
So I know before we presented this, but this is some of the learning we did as an ELA committee together. So we took these 5 components and we really made sure that we had the same common understanding of those components, the same beliefs around them. And that's what helped us evaluate our pilots that we went through. And then from that learning, we developed core beliefs for our ELA department. A lot of learning and a lot of time invested into everyone coming to a consensus and believing that these components are important for our ELA curriculum. And this is just an idea again of the programs that we have piloted at the middle school, starting today.
Yeah, we went through Art Fusion, Amplify, Common Lit, My Perspectives. This year we focused specifically on Common Lit and My Perspectives in all 3 grade levels.
Yeah.
Maybe for those that have, I know some in the room are familiar with that in education, but piloting is not an easy feat. So the fact that they went through 4 of them, I commend all of the ELA teachers. They really persevered through all of that because it was definitely a challenge and exhausting.
So this is kind of how things shook out this year. So you can see the difference between Common Lit and My Perspectives, and Carrie's kind of laid it out really nicely. The criteria going down are our core beliefs, and then the percentages are like the percentage of our committee that thought that piece of criteria was being met by that particular program. So you can see for the most part, My Perspectives came out above Common Lit this year. The only area, I guess I should say, where it didn't was that bottom belief. And we think that that's likely because no curriculum is perfect. And one of our beliefs is that we should have full novel studies throughout ELA. And neither of these programs had a full novel study. So we marked it down, both of those programs down in that category. But so teacher feedback, a lot of really great strengths came, from my perspectives. We thought that the material, for the students was appropriate, it was diverse, it was grade appropriate, which we didn't find in all of the programs, so that was a bonus. Lots of strategies for teachers, lots of strategies for students, materials were appropriate and were great for kids. Lots of flexible structures and how we can approach things with kids, and lots of tools for student learning. And then the challenges, of course, every program has them. But these 4 challenges, I guess if anything, it's kind of nice that these 4, we think that we can tackle them as a committee. So some of the challenges like pacing was hard, because the units in my perspective are very long and dense, but that's something we feel like we can tackle together. Because as we go through the program, we're going to figure out better how to do pacing. The digital materials can be a little bit distracting for students, but that's an easy fix with us just being able to adapt to our own digital program. It doesn't always communicate well with Milburn's technology, but again, something that our tech department easily can troubleshoot. And then integration of novels are not there, but that's something that we're gonna plan together as a committee.
Our proposal is to adapt my perspective.
Based on all those strengths and challenges and the fact that it met a lot of the core beliefs that we had, the strengths and the challenges came from the evaluation rubric that the teachers had utilized to evaluate the programs. It really had a lot more of 100% of the feedback from the teachers with in a much more positive light from my perspectives. So we looked at the proposal, the cost for 3 years would be $43,162. That includes the professional development cost, the student books and digital access, which ends up being $31 per student per year. I will say the consumable student book is big. Like it is,
Nice.
it is very nice. And then that also includes they're giving us free teacher editions, and then the shipping and handling is included in that cost as well. Question.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
I'm just curious how the 4, like you guys said you cited the 4, who picks the 4? Like, is there a criteria for picking those, or is that those are just sort of the best out there that I know?
So a lot of it's looking at which programs have really good ratings to meet certain criteria. Just also hearing word of mouth, because there's, dozens and dozens of programs. So what do other neighboring districts use? So that kind of helped guide us as well. And then we kind of narrowed down, we looked at those programs, we looked at which ones would fit some of our needs and then determined it from that. Yeah,
We used ed reports to see like, we only picked ones that met in all categories, so I'll narrow out some of the other ones.
So of your 2 finalists, the one you like is 43K for 3 years. I'm just curious how that stacks up against the others. Are they pretty comparable?
the other one was less expensive, but it was only digital.
Okay.
And
Very bare bones, so you get, maybe the text, but nothing that goes along with it. The nice part about my perspectives, it has a ton of differentiation options for kids who are high achieving, kids who need help, English language learners as well. So it just comes with a lot of that stuff already provided for us. So it's not reinventing the wheel. Every kid in every grade level is getting kind of the same support. So it's not just, one teacher can figure out a really great way to do it in 7th grade, but a 6th or an 8th grader might not get that same support. It's all just kind of streamlined there. So that was the benefit of having less of just the bare bones curriculum.
What are some of the technology issues you guys were identifying and communicating with our systems?
Super glitchy, like if a text was there, it would say like it was loading like the annotation components, so a kid couldn't scroll through the text or whatever. We found that if we swapped from Safari to Google Chrome, that sometimes helped. If you refresh about 10 times, that usually helped. So we figured out ways to kind of get around it, but we're hoping we can kind of, once we purchase it, it links to Schoology, so we're hoping that kind of alleviates some of the communication issues, so yeah, little stuff like that.
We were also currently rostered through the web browser instead of through our like instead of through Clever, which has another clinician.
You said that, you were gonna have the teachers get together and plan the novel studies. And I know that that's also an arduous task, so are you planning on starting tackling that this summer, so that's ready to roll out for the fall?
Yeah, as a committee, we, last week we met, and so we are trying to find dates where we could potentially all be together, maybe even before the end of the year. My perspectives gives guidance on suggested novels too that go with some of the themes throughout the unit. So everyone's very excited about doing that over the summer, so we are coming in feeling ready to go.
That was my next question was, do
Yeah.
they give you guidance, so.
They do, yeah, a lot of suggested texts and, there's, gosh, it's like 10 pages of text in the back that they give us that are of various lifestyles and different genres, and now kind of fit the theme, of the particular units that we're looking at.
I have a question, it's gonna seem crazy, but, not crazy, pretty basic. What is the goal of our ELA curriculum for our students? With the, like, understanding what you're reading, how to communicate what you've read, grammar, vocabulary? What is the actual, what?
Yeah, so a lot of all of that, obviously we focus on the standards, reading, writing, speaking, listening, and we've got some. We have to obviously focus on those standards or grammar standards that live within those categories too. So we took all of those things and from there kind of decided what our core beliefs were and what we're focusing on just as a middle school, and as a committee. So that's where those beliefs came from, and all of that, we focus on the common core standards as we go.
Okay, so. Yeah, and you wanna integrate now, because I totally get that, and maybe it's just my simple-minded brain, some of the stuff that. It seems to me like they read a book. And they take a test on the content of the book, and maybe even some of the themes. And then, is that it? Or are we still teaching them grammar, vocabulary, understanding, being able to communicate what you've read? Because you should be able to do it in any book, right?
Yeah.
So is. And I guess when I look. The reason I ask that question is I hear all these things about no kids in these districts are at reading level, you know what I mean? Like the Chicago districts have. You know, there's some districts, no kids at reading level, and I'm trying to understand what at reading level means. The fact that you can read a book and tell me what you read, or the fact that you. Is it writing skills, you know what I mean, and I. Trying to get more specific than just, okay, we read a book and.
I think a lot of it is being able to think critically about the text, right? To read a text, understand what you read, think about the bigger picture, and then be able to communicate that in some way, whether it's through a written product, whether it's through speaking and sharing a speech. 8th grade did end of unit presentation.
Yeah, so the kids actually analyzed it through my perspectives, this curriculum, the kids analyzed several texts, so. This one wasn't a novel study, it was rather a full-length play, so they read the play of The Diary of Anne Frank, and then they read multiple nonfiction texts, they listened to poetry, they read poetry, they did all sorts of reading. And then their final culminating assessment, they did write an essay, but then they also were able to have choice in a project to convey their thoughts. So like one of the options was to do a podcast. So a lot of our kids elected to do a podcast where they got with their group and they had to incorporate, textual evidence and the theme of resilience throughout the course of the text that they've read, and they took on the persona of the characters and had to express that. So there were a couple of options, but that was one of them. Trying to think what else. Yeah, they could have expressed it like via song lyrics, they could have expressed it, there was like a museum brochure they could have curated. So there were a lot of different options for them to present at the end. So that was fun. So on top of writing the essay, which they did, they got to select something a little bit more creative.
And from that, it's like, my perspectives embedded these like, analytical comprehension skills throughout. So like, as the teachers were able to see like the depth of their knowledge from the vocabulary was embedded inside of it. And throughout each of those stories, they had multiple opportunities to have discussions on it, and not just like, who are the characters, like they got opportunities to go in depth and truly understand the themes behind the text.
And a lot of programs right now, they're based, they have incorporated novel into them. And so after speaking with the high school, and I think I shared this last time, they were saying that kids just don't have the stamina to read books anymore because they're not practicing it necessarily on a regular basis. So that's where our core belief of finding that balance came in. And so one of the thoughts is to do the learning within the program and then take that learning and apply it to the level.
And this is probably not a fair question, I'm gonna ask it anyway. If a student walked out of your class and you said, I want you to get one thing out of this, if you got nothing else, what do you feel would be the most important thing you learn with the ELA? Reading, comprehension, writing.
Critical thinking skills, yes, being able to read obviously and comprehend, but to be able to think critically about the world and real life issues based on a text that they read. And connect it to the real world somehow.
Okay, so for you, it's applying what they've read to their own life in the real world.
That's a big priority, yeah.
Sounds like this program really lends itself nicely to UDL also, giving them voice and choice at the end.
Yeah, very much so.
I don't, so recently had this big canvas shut down, I know, we're not using it. But one of the nice things you said about this program, it has the paper copies. Is there enough paper copies? Should our Schoology go down? We'll be good for a week or whatever.
It's very- Paper copies of things, because we're interacting, I think, with the text even more, just having it physically instead of anything digital, so,
Which is one of the reasons we liked it.
yeah.
Whereas Cognilet did not have the paper, you had to print everything if you wanted to on PDF.
Anything else? from anyone? All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work.
Next bullet point, our fiscal year 26 amended budget, Ms. Kraft.
Okay, so this time of year, we kind of look back at the past fiscal year and see how revenues and expenditures have changed since the budget was originally submitted to the state in August. So we will be submitting an amended budget to the state this year. At the next board meeting on the 18th, be requesting board approval to put the amended budget on display and post an ad in the newspaper about the budget hearing, which will be at the end of June. The next few pages in this document are just summarizing the changes, so very high level. When the state is determining whether or not we have a balanced budget, it's only looking at 4 funds: the education fund, buildings and grounds, transportation, and working cash. And back in August, we had a balanced budget. We had a surplus of revenues over expenditures of about $150,000. We're pretty much there still. The surplus went up just an additional like $5,000. But the intent of this amended budget is to capture where in all of these detailed account codes, the changes are going to be made. Because one thing our auditor does is they're looking every year to see if there's a massive difference between what we budgeted and what was spent, or what we budgeted and what we actually receive in revenue. So to go through this pretty quickly, I'm really going to only focus on those working account codes of Fund 10. Starting with Fund 10, we did see a little bit of additional revenue with or a lot of additional revenue with interest rates, as well as an increase in activity fees that we're collecting from students because there must have been additional participation. So the $20,000 there is coming from additional activity fees from students participating in after school activities, an additional about 100,000 in interest we're receiving. On the state revenue side, there was a decrease of $65,000. That's because after we submitted the budget, we learned that the state allotment for private special ed tuition was decreased. So that is accounting for that takeaway. And then every year, we typically see an increase in federal revenue. That's because of all of the grants that we get, the money that we didn't spend from the prior year is rolled over and we get that information in October. So, we're going to see about an additional $120,000 in federal funds. On the expenditure side, let's see, the bigger changes there on the benefit side, we're seeing a lot of tuition reimbursements for teachers, so that is increasing just over $15,000. Purchase services, that's tied to professional development, tied to the grants specifically, and some additional field trip expenses. We jump down to capital equipment, that's primarily accounting for the MES cafe projector and sound system that that Epic is paying for us. So actually that local revenue of 120 is also capturing the additional money from Epic. Tuition dues and fees is increasing about $55,000. So one thing that could typically impact a budget or greatly impact a budget is if we had an out-of-district special ed student. So that is falling into tuition dues and fees there. So we did see that this year. And then non-capital equipment, or just some cafeteria equipment repairs, additional projectors throughout the building. We jump down to operations and maintenance. Really high level there. And if we could, yeah, kind of
Okay,
carries over
splits,
to,
sorry.
yeah, it splits. Purchase services, we're seeing a lot of decreases in Fund 20, and that's because we didn't experience as many HVAC repairs as we anticipated. And we saw a significant decrease to our electricity costs. So we are part of an energy consortium. Last year, when I was working on the budget, they said to increase what we paid last year by 35%, and I did. But we got nowhere near that, so maybe it was due to weather, I'm not sure. So we're going to decrease the budget for electricity. And then we scroll down to the second part of Fund 20 there. For non-cap equipment, there's a decrease in non-cap equipment. So that's any equipment between $500 and $5,000. It was primarily tied to HVAC repairs. But again, we didn't see as many as we have in prior years. We can skip debt service. We scroll down to Fund 40, that's transportation. There's some pretty big numbers here. Local revenue is tied to some additional interest as well as some revenue that we're getting from Waukegan School District for sharing the cost of a cab for homeless students. And then state revenue slightly went up, and the reason for that is because the state revenue reimbursement is looking a year in arrears on what our expenditures were, and we had a new set of buses, the smaller buses, came onto the books, and so their depreciation was higher, so therefore we're getting a little bit more back from the state. On the expenditure side, our salaries went down, we lost a driver mid-year, purchase services went up, and that is because we are capping students to out-of-district schools, as well as a number of homeless families. So those are primarily cab costs there.
$250,000 and.
Yeah, but
That's the
with,
increase.
when it,
That's not the total. Right?
That
Is that-
increase.
We're showing increases and decreases here.
we're showing
Totals.
increases and decreases, but at the start of the year, I didn't have any students going out of district because we had a bus driver at that time taking care of it, and then we added an additional out of district student, so that student is being cabbed. And I only accounted for one, I believe, homeless family at the start of the year, and I think we are up to 4 or 5. That is shared though with the home district. It's split 50-50 typically, but still that is the cost of
So there's nothing we can do about $250,000 in cab costs?
well, we could hire more bus drivers. So if you know anyone, we are desperately looking for bus drivers. Yes, yeah,
And we train.
and we train. and pay for training. So that is, that would be the solution.
So if we had additional so we have sufficient buses, we just don't have drivers to get these people to these various places and that's. why these-
To a point. We don't have unlimited,
Right.
but it would help.
And we're simply, we've been unable to find bus drivers to fill these positions, right?
We were good at the beginning of the year, I thought.
We were okay. We were okay because we didn't have these out of district routes at the time. And we had enough bus drivers to cover the routes that existed as well as have a sub. Ideally, we would always have two subs. Right now, I would say we're down 4 drivers, or we will be for next year. So I'm interviewing one on Wednesday. I'm very hopeful for that. So we will be down 3 drivers. It would be great to find 3 more drivers for the start of the next school year.
And it would start in August.
Yes.
How much are we paying?
To be determined. That we have to work through the salary increases, which would be determined,
But right now it's 24
I think it's 2508 is the starting rate.
currently,
Mhm.
and that will go likely to go up,
So,
pending board approval.
And we would also pay up to 5 years of service, so it would be a little bit higher if someone was coming with experience. That's just the starting rate. So that is transportation. If we scroll down to Fund 60, even though this is not part of the overall budget determining whether or not it's balanced, just wanted to point something out here. There are some decreases there, and the reason for that is because the original budget included replacing the gym floor at the elementary school here, and we're not doing that project. And it also included, or baked in a higher cost for the tuck pointing and roof repairs. It didn't come in as high as we thought, so we're decreasing those expenditures in Fund 60. And if you could scroll down to.
We're not doing that floor now, or we don't need to do it for some reason.
We will do it, we would need to do it eventually, we're just not doing it this year with all the other projects going on.
Okay.
And then working cash, a little bit of extra revenue, but that will just be, that's coming from interest and we can, transfer that to Fund 10. Under Fund 90, just added a little bit for purchase services and equipment. We have a little bit of extra money in Fund 90 and we still have some smaller fire alarm replacements that we can do on the existing life safety plan. So we're just knocking those out. And so those costs were added to the amended budget. This is a screenshot of what was submitted to the state in August. Shows that our revenues over expenditures was just over 155,000. If we go down to the next page, we still have a balanced budget and revenues over expenditures is 160,000. I don't anticipate any major changes between now and June, so I think that this will pretty much stay as is. Any questions?
I want to go back to the bus driver in case I talked to people over the
Sure.
summer about it.
Sure,
It's only a 9-month-a-year job, I assume.
correct.
And when you say it's $25 an hour, I know that it may or may not go up. How many hours do they get per day?
That's a good question. So we guarantee 4 hours a day. And then we offer, every month the drivers bid on field trips and sports runs. It's based on seniority. But everyone gets a shot to, bid on those routes as well.
So if normally it would be 4 hours a day,
Yes,
minimum.
yes.
But- They would drive. Most of those drivers would drive 2 routes in the morning, so you do an elementary route and a middle school route, and then an elementary route and a middle school route in the afternoon. And most of them are around 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes total.
So typically they do 4 hours a day,
Yes. Yeah.
not 6. Usually.
Yes, we guarantee 4.
So one of our retiring bus drivers then also worked with Arbor Whitson's to serve lunches, so it's not necessarily always available, but there's.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of the drivers prefer just having that shift, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. and then they go golfing or whatever in the middle of the day, because a lot of them are retired. Some do, to Fred's point, they work at Arbor, or Whitson's, or they might do recess duty. Doing that enables them, not working for Arbor, but if they do recess duty and get an additional 2 hours, or if they do a midday route or a band route in the morning, once they hit 6 hours, they become benefits eligible for fully covered employee only benefits. So that's another perk. This summer, we are training drivers. So if we hire this candidate on Wednesday, it would be someone who is not a current bus driver. So we will be doing a round of training this summer to get people up and running. So we're looking for even people without experience. If they're interested, we would be going through training probably mid-June through the start of August.
Any other questions? Thank you. Mr.
One
Ryan.
more
Oh,
question,
okay.
yeah, actually, about the bus drivers, since we're talking about it.
Sure.
So hypothetically, we had more bus drivers, whatever the optimal number is. And that 250,000 cab costs come down, but not completely. So is there, I'm assuming there's some inflection point where we're looking to see the correct number of bus drivers versus cab costs we're not gonna get rid of with bus drivers, right? Like, how low can we lower that number? Or is there a target you guys are looking for? Is there I know we need at least 3 bus drivers, but is there a sweet spot that exists beyond that, or is that the number?
No, because it's so there's way too many variables on there,
Okay.
and it changes throughout the year, so. For special education, someone could move into the district
Mhm.
mid-year, which happens.
And we're always at the mercy of those decisions, whenever.
We do not have. So it's hard to pick a sweet spot or a goal when you don't have control over
Right.
the inputs or the outputs in this case. So it just is.
Mhm.
And so we try to do it the best we can with scheduling and routes and bus drivers, but we don't want too many bus drivers. We don't want to pay people if there's not
Right.
routes.
Right, because the reason I ask is because we guarantee a minimum number of hours, so even if we
Right.
don't need them, we're paying them for them.
Well, we've always needed that. So the sweet spot is actually 18 drivers is typically
Right.
what we've always needed.
Okay.
And the other thing is, if you could scroll back up to that Fund 40, if, even if we had enough drivers, that 223 in cab cost would decrease, but that salary line would go up.
Right, of course.
Yep.
And that's the part I'm wondering
Right.
about, right, where that balance is not gonna make sense, because the cab costs are a limited time for the life of whatever students are being affected by this.
They're flexible.
Right.
That's the advantage. More expensive,
Mhm.
but they're also flexible.
I think this year, out of the past 4 years, has been our highest cab usage year. But 18 drivers is the sweet spot, because typically we have about 16 routes in the morning and afternoon every day, and then having those 2 subs is just so important. So even if all of the drivers came in on a given day and we didn't need the subs that day, we are still paying them their 4 hours. But they're used in other ways too. They might sit on a route that's rowdy and the driver just needs an additional adult there, or they're learning the other routes so that they're ready to go when they have to sub on a given day.
Okay, makes sense, thanks.
Okay, transfer of interest treasurer's bond. Scrapped, is that you as well?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, transfer of interest, those are, so it should just be transfer of interest. We are allowed under, school code to transfer interest from the working cash fund and from the, debt services fund, as long as the bond is paid off, which it is. We can transfer the interest earned in those 2 funds over to the fund most in need. We would deem that the education fund for this year. So at the next board meeting, I will be asking the board to approve the resolution to make that transfer. Will be about $50,000. And then treasurer's bond, the school district is required to, get a treasurer's bond every year. It's basically an insurance policy for our treasurer. So that's just something that the board needs to approve at the next board meeting. And then that gets submitted to the ROE.
Thank you. And that is Dr. Johns is.
Yes, he is still Dr.
He
John.
was our former CSBO. Okay, and he's the current CSBO for CEDAW, or interim, I think. technically.
Interim.
Interim,
For now.
thank you. Any other questions on treasurer's bond or transfer of interest? Okay, the reciprocal agreement with Lake County Sheriff. So I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but if there's an issue in the student's life outside of the walls of the school, then it might spill into school. It gives the sheriff authority to share their information with us. And similarly, if we think something that happens inside our walls might affect life outside, it gives us permission to share information with them. Again, there's still privacy. Only very certain cases can information, we don't just give them a key to our SIS system and say, there you go, but is it?
Yeah.
Check more and more. Any questions on it? Or?
No, but it's always that, you know, I'm a big believer in privacy and safety too, and they always seem to be at loggerheads, so.
Yeah, we have to be able to trust the organization that they're gonna keep it safe. And they have laws that they have to abide by for confidentiality, just like we do for FERPA and HIPAA and all the other.
But this relationship actually increases safety because it increases the ability to communicate with each other.
Within, and it outlines exactly. It gives us a little parameter by it, so we're not wondering and calling our attorney and saying, hey, can we say this, which we have done and would do. And gives them the freedom and say, hey, we've got this ability, so. It's very rare that we have that, actually. It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it's really nice.
Any other questions? Okay, Camp Timberley.
So update on Camp Timberley.
Thank you.
Yeah. The last I talked, we were trying to make a decision on, do we do a 2-night, 3-day, or do we do a 2-day, 1-night experience for the kids? Heard some feedback from the board and wanted to get your input as well on that. We are going to do a 3-day, 2-night experience like we have for next year. The caveat to that is that falls, because of the way the calendar works this year, we do a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It falls on the Institute Day. So I don't think we're gonna get a lot of pushback from parents on that. It's a day off for kids. They're gonna be having fun and they'll be home by noon that day on Friday, so it shouldn't be too bad. And I'm a little bit curious as to how that's gonna work. So it's not ideal for staff. We talked this morning in our administrative team about how that works, because that's a day of learning and instruction, but it's a small number of staff and we want to maintain that opportunity for kids, so we're gonna shoot for a 3-day. We're gonna have to communicate a lot more than typical with people on the calendar for 5th graders who are rising up to the middle school. So first of all, they know what we're talking about with Camp Timberley. And second of all, that they know that 3rd day would have been a day off for kids. And so if they have plans to try to work around it, if their kids want to stay. And if not, if there's a significant amount of people who want to come home on that Thursday night or take that Friday off, we would arrange transportation to come back. Bring kids back. But the difference in cost between a 2-day and a 3-day is not significant. Not at all.
So we're on for next year.
We are on for next year.
I'm very happy about that. For one, I hope, I would hope that, both my kids went through it. I chaperoned it twice. People I talked to went to Melbourne 20 years ago to talk about it still. I'm glad we're doing it, and I appreciate you letting us know. And if it becomes in jeopardy again, please let us know, because I'd be willing to try to figure out a way to let the kids shape that experience.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a great experience for the kids.
It's fantastic.
Not all kids have the great experience. at Timberley, that, I mean, they're. It is true, it's really hard for some kids, it's the first time away from parents, 2 nights, they're tired, they don't even know how to handle that experience. I think, they have a really hard time when it's there, which is hard to watch that. In the moment, it's hard to deal with and work with our staff, and I've been in some of those conversations where. They just wanna go home, I miss my mom, and they're crying and they just wanna go home. Can I just call, cause they don't have their cell phones up there, which is purposeful. They're fine, you're gonna be fine, but they've never had that. Disconnect before, so in the moment, it's hard. And it's hard as an adult trying to care for this child to. Say, you're gonna be fine. And they don't trust you on that necessarily, but
What percentage of attendees do you think are hitting that mark?
10%.
That's a pretty high percentage, actually.
It's a lot.
I'm sure that's a lot higher than it was 15 years ago.
And some of it is contagious.
Yeah.
And it could be higher than that, but once. Teenagers, that just the way they are. When one person gets emotional, then a whole group is emotional.
And just knowing, the information that we shared about needing to have cabs for families who are homeless. That leads me to the question of, do we do anything for families that maybe can't afford to send their kids?
Yes, so anybody that qualifies for under free and reduced lunch, which is currently 22% of our population on average. Would have the entire. Fee paid for. Because yes, it is not cheap,
Is it 6th and 7th grade that goes?
just 6.
Just, okay. Liam it was COVID, so he didn't, I never understood who was supposed to go to the 6th grade. Okay.
Yeah,
So he never got
I
to
still
go.
hear about that too.
No, it's not a criticism. I just didn't know, like, is it just 1 grade? Was it 2 and he missed, just lucked out that it was.
We managed to get the 7th graders there the 1 year of COVID that was missed, remember?
Did we?
Yeah,
They did that.
the sophomores in high school this year, the sophomores went as 7th graders. I think Liam's a junior. Right?
Yeah, but there was 1 grade that got missed.
Yes,
That was
and
Liam's
that
grade,
would
but
be
he
the
did get to go to
juniors this year.
Springfield when he was in 8th grade, so that was like, we were very grateful for
Yeah.
that, but he missed Canterbury.
Cause it's crazy. Yeah. Might not. Linnea missed it too.
Yeah.
I think when the 7th graders went, that's when we realized it's really for 6th graders
Really?
and not 8th graders.
Oh, I used to take 8th graders.
Yeah.
Myself, it was good.
We should take 5th graders.
5th graders,
Yeah.
ooh, that'd be.
See, I think a lot of the homesickness stuff would be easier with 7th or 8th graders. 6th grade's really tough because they're transitioning.
Yeah,
Into
they're-
new school. Also, there's a lot of really overwhelming things for more shy children in 6th grade here, right? The 24-hour challenge, I know is rough too. It's good.
Yeah, it's tough to manage that.
Alright,
It's probably the best reason we do the 24-hour challenge is to get them ready for Timberlake.
Yeah, maybe.
okay. Anything else on Timberlake? All right, moving on to future agenda items. A consolidated district plan. Approved to display tentative amended budget. For the transfer of interest resolution and approval of the treasurer's bond. Again, if you want to add any future agenda items, let myself and Dr. Lind know and we can get on that. Dr. Lind,
All right.
report please.
Yes, we had the opportunity to go to the Regional Office of Education Educator of the Year event last week. And on Wednesday night and honor our 6 nominees. Mrs. Kao was one of those representing the middle school. So it's a great event and a great opportunity to recognize the people who are doing the job and are here and doing a great job at it. And it's a little overwhelming with all the people across the county who are there, you just realize how big education is. And that's just a tiny fraction of teachers in the county, because there was 3 from our middle school that were honored, and 3 from our elementary that were honored. And that's just a small portion of our staff, but when you get in the building and it's a lot of people, it's overwhelming. It's great. It was a great event.
Melbourne had great seats.
Melbourne had great seats this year. Yep. Yeah, well, I found out what they do. They rotate.
Oh, do they?
Yep. They rotate because we've been in the back corner for many years,
That's really good.
which is where, yeah. The Melbourne people back there. No, it's great. Yeah, we were right front and center. That was wonderful.
It was a really great event to like honor our educators, and I appreciate the different categories that they have of educators so that we can think about, oh yeah, this group too, and oh yeah, that group too, and you're like, oh, our bus drivers get to be recognized, and it's just a really nice event to honor our educators, because we're not always at the top of everyone's honor list, so it's
Yeah.
nice.
Yep, lots of people trying to do great things for kids all in one place, and everybody's got a different role,
Mhm.
which was exciting. We also got to do it internally with our Milburn staff, honor our 5, 10, 15, 20 year people who have been here that long. And some of our retirees, we have 5 retirees this year. A big group, 1 bus driver and 4, 1 bus driver, parapro, and 6. And 4 teachers, maybe 6. That's a great group, and it's hard to see them go. Well, good for them. Happy for them. But we'll miss them.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Do you have anything else to add to your report, Ms. Kraft?
I do have one thing, I was not able to get it into the business office report. Because that goes out midweek, but Jen, last week or last meeting, you had asked about. Other co-ops or other districts that might. You've heard, were getting increases to their healthcare costs that were in the single digits, so I looked into that, and here's what I learned. There is a larger cooperative or a couple cooperatives that are administered by a company called Gallagher. Gallagher is the liability insurance cooperative that oversees the insurance that Milburn purchases, but Gallagher offers 3 healthcare cooperatives. 1 is specific to Rockford, 2 exist in this area. So what I learned about the district that you heard about having a single digit increase, they did for their PPO, they didn't for their HMO. Their HMO was over 12%. Their PPO was about 2%, which is amazing. Why is that? This is why. What Gallagher does is different than what our cooperative does. So a traditional cooperative is looking at the prior year's cost or usage for medical insurance, and they put trends out to kind of predict what's going to happen in the future. And then they set their rate, and that rate is spread amongst all the members of that cooperative. What Gallagher does is different. They do that, but then they look at the individual usage of the districts within that cooperative. So the cooperative that you heard about, they actually, the way Gallagher prices the rates is they take a baseline rate, maybe it was 8, almost 9%, and then they go up 10% based on usage or down 10% based on usage. That means that some members in that cooperative were paying close to 19% this year or for next year in increases. So they're seeing a lot more than a district who sees, a 1% or a 5% increase. The trick with that is those increases are coming basically on the health or even the luck of the district in that prior year. So if you have a NICU baby or someone with an aggressive form of cancer in a given year, you're really going to see a spike the following year in health insurance increases. So what Gallagher is doing is they're not spreading the increase just blanketly across all the members. They're also looking at usage. Take that a step further, the plan design is slightly different. They're better in some instances than our current cooperative here at Milburn, and not as good in other places. And then to take it one step further, Their cooperative does not offer a flexible spending account plan or an employee assistance program. So an EAP is basically giving employees up to 6%, or not 6%, 6 sessions of mental health care a year. So if you wanted to offer those benefits, you would have to go out and to a provider and basically purchase those on your own. So that was one of their cooperatives. The other one works pretty much the same. It just goes 5% up or 5% below from their base increase for the year. So what I'm going to do is I will get rates from Gallagher to see if they're much lower than ours. But like Dr. Lynn said in the last board meeting, it's possible that their rates may be lower, but the next year they're going to, they could likely go up. Those rates could increase. One other thing to mention is they said they had this cooperative or this liability company. They said they had a rough year this year. They said they're going to have a rough year next year, which is what we're hearing across the board too. So it's just medical insurance costs are rising dramatically. But anyway, I will start looking into rates and then digging into the cost of a flex account and the EAP account to see what that would cost if we were to go out on our own as well there.
Do we typically utilize both of those services in our current plans pretty heavily? Do people take advantage
I
of it?
wouldn't say, we do with the flex, that's one thing I would never want to get rid of. So with that benefit, for those that don't know, people are allowed to put aside pre-tax dollars to go towards dependent care, like daycare expenses, or pre-tax dollars for medical care. People do use the medical flex spending account. The EAP it's not used as much, but it is used, and I think it's important. It's giving free mental health care, so I would like to keep that as a total benefits package. But anyway, we'll look into rates and see what comes back. Any questions on that? No,
The fun of rising healthcare costs.
I know, it's a challenge.
A lot of people use the flex account. I hated it because I always had money I lost at the end of the year.
Well, so I would say, I would say probably at least 80 to 100 people use it here, so it's used, which is great. You shouldn't lose money, so even if you had a surplus on the medical side, you could always just go to
Buy a
Walgreens.
bunch of Band-Aids.
Exactly, yep, exactly.
Find a 2-week or 1-week a camp session at the park district for kids.
I've never used them for the same reason that you do, because obviously they're built with a purpose in mind, and this purpose is to, they win in on the average, I think, on these accounts.
Depending on-
People that use them responsibly get a lot of benefit.
And it's that margin of your tax rate. If you're losing less money than you're saving in taxes, then you're still paying that, so.
And do we offer HSAs? I moved to an HSA, I'd love to, because that's my money that we don't offer any of that stuff.
My understanding for that, you have to have a high deductible health insurance plan, and we don't offer that, so yeah, we couldn't offer that benefit.
All right. Any board reports? I attended so I'll take my board report then. I attended the end of year staff celebration. About 140, I want to say, were there. Again, it was really great seeing the inclusion of the teachers who had already retired years prior coming to the event and, kind of sharing stories and reminiscing. Yeah, if you have a chance to go. And it's the timing being in the middle of the workday, but then, if it's later in the day, the teachers and staff might go home and not want to come back. And so it's fine to find line and take the time down. And there was also the talent show on Friday, put on by Epic. So that was another great opportunity to see our parents involved and the students we have doing their thing. All right.
I know the 8th grade farewell celebration coming up soon. My insights to the decorating committee, I understand things are going well, and they're all very excited about the upcoming dance.
Just this week, right?
Friday,
Friday.
it is this week, it's Friday.
Seventh graders hold up.
Okay, so we are not gonna have a closed session tonight. Correct?
Unless you really, if you want an update on
Then,
negotiations
but
or you wanna wait.
we have,
till next week?
yeah, there, so Dr. Lynn and Ms. Kraft are meeting with the union on the 14th. So then we'll do closed session after our next week meeting because our back-to-back meeting weeks because of Memorial Day. And then I guess then Tuesday after Memorial Day is 8th grade graduation, so if you want to attend, just put that on your calendar. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks.